Shalom. Kol halalim la banawa Yahweh, Bahashem Yahavashai, Bahashem Rakakodash. Double honors to the apostles, elders, elder bishops of Great Millstone. Shalom. Shalom to the prophets of that body, and shalom to the 144,000 and one third. May peace and blessings be upon your households. We're going home soon, Yasharala. Fret not, okay? All right, we're going home soon. Now, before I start digressing, which I've got a habit of doing, let's focus on the fact of the matter here. Esau, see, these curses are coming upon the heathen. All right, I'm on this channel called Worldsight. It's probably some Edomites channel, right? So copyright, fair use. Okay, I'm not making no money out of this. Okay, just going along with the agenda, what the video is saying. Just going to filter it through. Just read a couple of scriptures along with what's being shown visually. Deuteronomy 30 verse 7, and the Lord Yahweh B'Hashem Yashai, thy power will put all these curses upon thine enemies and on them that hate thee, which persecuted thee. Okay, so we're seeing a so-called white man, right? Even though he had his power, he had it lovely for a short while, and especially from the the things that we've seen visually, right? Especially on screen. So let's just say the 1950s, right? We've seen how lovely they lived. The 50s was a decade of decadence, happiness, music, romance, innovation, technology, beautiful homes, wives at home, a man having a great job, whether he worked in the office or so-called blue collar, he was able to provide for his family. And all he had to worry about, all their sons had to worry about, was dating Peggy Sue on a Friday night and making sure the homework was done for Monday. And the dad, all he had to worry about was getting home on time to have his martini, while his dinner is still warm, Those days where Esau could go home, his wife would probably answer the door in a fur coat, you know what I mean, with nothing on underneath. Even though Esau was a fruitcake, but you know what I'm trying to say. They had those blessings of complete happiness where they had no problems, It was just like, it was nothing. Everything worked out for them, it went their way, And it was they believed all that bullshit that was spewed, like making movies like the Ten Commandments and all these biblical-esque type movies where they showed themselves as everyone, the Most High. They showed themselves as the Most High. They showed themselves as the Messiah, as a people, as a holy people, the Israelites, which for the bulk, the Israelites are the so-called Negroes, Latinos, and Native Indians, as well as other Israelites that may not have the original look, but stem from the loins of an Israelite man. Okay, because when I say Jake, I'm talking about Jacob, so-called Black, Hispanic, and Native Indian. And when I say Black, I'm not talking about you Africans, you Hamites. Okay, even though there's Jake amongst them, because a lot of I don't really personally like Hamite women. I don't find them attractive at all, unless they may be borderline, it's like Ethiopian, maybe Eritrean looking, or maybe Somalian. I've never seen a baddie Somalians. They look weird to me, but you got the odd okay looking one. So there's Jake amongst them. Wherever there's attractive women, our people are gonna be there. Hence the reason why you see so much salt, when it comes to music, innovation, athletics, dance, break dancing. You got the people that look like heathen nations, East Indians, Chinese, Japanese, so-called white people that can sing and dance like a so-called black man. You close your eyes, say, shit, that's a brother? Then you look, shit, it's a devil. It looks like a devil, but no. You look at his last name could be Irish, Italian, or whatever, right? Even though Italians look somewhat more ethnic anyway than other so-called white people, but our people are amongst everybody, right? So Deuteronomy 30 verse 7, and the Lord thy power will put all these curses upon thy enemies and on them that hate thee, which persecute thee. Now I'm going to put this video. It's about homelessness in the UK. There's tons of videos about homelessness in America, but I thought, let me just make a quick video on the UK side, a place called Bristol. All right, so I'm going to play it. All right, let me just slow the video down or speed it up. Which one should I do? Speed it up or slow it down? Let's speed it up a tad. Yeah, let's go.
Bristol is a city renowned for its creativity, vibrant festivals, and electrifying nightlife. On one side, you'll find luxurious restaurants, high-end apartments, and yachts docked in its historic harbor. But on the other side, there are homeless individuals living in actual caves on the outskirts of the city.
Well, living in caves is basically a trait of the so-called white man. Their first home was Mount Seir. And if you look at Mount Seir, it looks exactly like kind of similar to the White House with them those pillars and all that. Very similar infrastructure, right? Similar to the White House and most so-called modern day buildings. An example would be, let's just go to Mount Seir. Let's go to Mount Seir. All right, and within Mount Seir, you have the holes, and you've got the apartments and flats today, that are tall concrete buildings with holes in it. All right, that is a representation of the Caucasus Mountains. I mean, then we pushed them into the Caucasus Mountains, but the first home was Mount Seir, right? Mount Seir. That's what the image is. It's SE. Is it Seir, right? Yeah, it's the other way around. So the images of how it looks. Oh, here we go. This is a perfect example. Lovely here. Check that out. Right? Site of ancient Edom. All right? Ancient Edom. Okay? Edomite territory. The Edomites are so-called white people, Caucasians, okay? Now, let's go to Rome all over again. Okay? Which is America. The White House. Images. Okay? Okay? Similar, right? Similar, see? Because we're in Rome all over again. This is the so-called white man's rulership, okay? Now, let's go to... where's that video again? Oops. Now, Esau's resorting to live in the caves because they're homeless. And their second home, well, the first home is a cave, but they're resorting back to their old ways, which is how they're going to be when they're in slavery. Okay? Because, they're going to go into slavery when we have them in chains in a kingdom, but they're already getting used to it. And also, this alludes to, these people aren't living in the caves because they're trying to escape the digital ID or the digital wallet. They're just simply homeless. All right, so this is alluding to the demolition man type movie where you had the people that were chipped living overground, and you had the people that didn't want to be part of that New World Order agenda were living underground. Okay, so it's alluding to that. Revelation. Let's go to Revelation 39 and 10. I haven't read that for a long time. Revelation 39 and 10 KJV. All right. So they're already getting used to, they're already going back to their ways. So they had their lows. So just 1,000 years ago, these crackers were in caves, right? They had their time to come back up, where the Lord, where Esau said they're going to build the desolate places, right? Which they did, right? And now it's their time to go down. All right. The Lord is plucking up that which was planted, taking down Esau's kingdom, stage by stage. 2 Ezra 6 verse 9. Esau is the end of the world and Jacob is the beginning of it that followeth. So Esau's world is ending. And they're resorting back to their old ways. They don't really talk much. They can't even string a sentence together anyway. You've seen how some of these toothless crackers talk. The ones, the ones that aren't working, that have never had an education, that have never gone abroad. The two-thirdians. Not two-thirdians, that's Jake, two-thirds. I mean the two-time losers, these crackers, right? Joe Six-Pack crackers. That weirdo that was crying in America, those type ones. That was saying, "Oh, get me out of here." Those type of ones. Revelation 3 and 9. No, I said Revelation 13, 9 and 10. Let me see. Revelation 13 and 9 and 10 KJV. If any man have an ear, let him hear. Verse 10, he that leadeth into captivity shall go into captivity. He that killeth with the sword must be killed with the sword. Here is the patience and the faith of the saints. All right. So I'm just showing you that they're just already going back to the old ways, and they're gonna, even when we have them in the kingdom, we're gonna keep them in a hole. Me personally, I am not gonna give no damn comfort to no damn Edomite. He's not gonna have a comfort of a beautiful woman. He's not gonna have a comfort of no liquor. He's not gonna have none of that. They're gonna have none of that. I'm barely gonna keep my slaves alive, man. Especially Esau. They're gonna fucking pay. I don't like them. I don't like the heathen, but Esau, I got special, you know. Um, I got something special planned for you, Lord willing, man. I don't like you devils, man. When I was a child, I never liked you devils, and that obviously as a child, I didn't know who I was. You know, I always knew that you might, mind my tongue, mind my tongue. I don't want to so-called swear too much.
Yes, not just makeshift tents or shop front shelters, real caves. The contrast couldn't be more striking. While a privileged few indulge in luxury and comfort, others are struggling to survive in places that should only be home to bats. So, what's the reality of homelessness in Bristol? Let's take a closer look.
Well, yeah, the so-called white man doesn't like sun, neither do bats, right? What do vampires stay away from? Sunshine, right? Who's a real damn vampire? Who likes to eat everything raw? And what did Esau do? Right? Didn't wait for that. That he had that rare pottage. He had that pottage. It wasn't cooked properly, right? That's his trait. He likes to eat everything blood raw. What do vampires do? Drink blood. What do vampires stay away from? Sunshine. A real vampire that sucks everything out of this world is a damn so-called white man. Esau, Edom. That's their place, the damn caves anyway. You know? Even when things are going well, you've got these hippie type Edomites, they always run around and walk around on pavements barefoot. You know? Have you seen that fucking show from the 70s and 80s? What was it called again? Huckleberry Finn. You know, that cracker that used to live with whatever his aunt's name was. That devil, instead of going to school, he would take his shoes off and run around on the pavements and everywhere else with, barefoot. You know, that's what these devils do. That's their nature, man. And even when things are so happy for them, those hippie-esque ones that like to get their hair, that don't like to comb their hair, that like to get their hair knotted into dreads or whatever. You know, those hippie crackers. You know, those type. And even if they're not those hippie-esque type ones, these motherfuckers like to take their shoes off wherever they go, like to sit on concrete floors, and people could have spat there, dog could have weed there, whatever, pissed there, whatever. They like to go and sit there. That's their nature, man. You would never see Jake just sitting on a random concrete floor, man. Not unless they're chocolate covered Edomites. Their daddy's a honky, or a heathen or whatever. But this is an Edomite trait, man. So going back to it, and these curses are coming on these devils too. And ultimately, it's a lack of jobs, being priced out. The pound, the UK pound is not stretching. Haggai 1 and 6. Let's just play this and I'll read a couple more scriptures.
On a national scale, the number of people sleeping rough on the streets rose by 20% last year, reaching a total of 4,667. This marks the second highest level ever recorded and is nearly double the total from 2021. In Bristol alone, thousands were homeless during Christmas 2024. According to
And how much more this year as the benefits are cutting off and benefits are changing. And even though you're going to get some kind of benefit called universal credit, it's not going to be as lucrative or financially beneficial as it was as several years ago with your tax credits and, and other types of benefits that these people get. And then on top of that, in America, the benefits have been shut down. The no snap and EBT is going to make people snap, And with Christmas coming up, everybody's being pushed into a corner. All right. No money, no benefits, homeless, no Christmas, Thanksgiving. Not that Thanksgiving is celebrated here, but I'm just saying we're talking about America and England together, right? What's happening? It's happening in other parts of the world too, right? So people are being pushed into a corner where they're not going to have a choice. All right. And when that charagma, that CHIP is introduced, they're going to take it because it's going to be a way for them to buy and sell, to have a roof over their head. Maybe some people will go with the flow, or some people will buck up against it. But we'll see when the time comes. But right now, these crackers are living in these caves simply because they're priced out. All right, 1 second. Let's go to Ecclesiastes 12. Let's verses 3 and 4. In the day when the keepers of the house shall tremble, and the strong men shall bow themselves, and the grinders cease because they are few, and those that look out of the windows be darkened. Okay, grinders cease, no jobs, and even if you do get a job, it's not paying enough. And even if it's not paying enough, you need to get a second job, and you can't find a second job. Therefore, you have a job. That's why a lot of people that have jobs, what do? They buy themselves like a banger, or what you call, like in America, a bucket, right? Right? Or what do they call them? What do you call it? Yeah. You get themselves like a basic car, a very cheap car. Could be a second-hand car or a third-hand car. 3, 4 owners or whatever. Some kind of van, and they do that van living. Or buy some kind of truck and convert if they've got enough money. They throw all their money into that, or they simply get homeless, or they just have a basic car. They're on their own. Or women have given their children to the grandparents, and the woman says that, what, I'll live in my car because there's no extra room in the house or whatever. I'm giving different examples, of course. So they live in their car. The children are with their grandparents, or one child is with one grandparent, the other child is with another grandparent. You know, um, like, for example, the mother's parents, or the whoever's the father, their parents, children divided up, and the mother is probably living in her car, which could be like a coupe, two-seater. Sorry, 4 people can fit in it, but it's a two-seater. I mean, two-door. And she's just sleeping in there and going to work, but showering in the gym. People are doing all sorts of different ways just to try and stay somewhat stable. But being homeless is not stable. All right, it's taken stability out. It's taken stability out of the way. And a lot of people, the few quid or the few little benefits that they do have, they're not even striving to try and get them out of that situation, because Yahweh Shemashah has put them in that situation. That what they do, they resort to drugs. So there's a whole little different things. These curses are coming on these devils. Okay, where most of them, 90% of them, are homeless. These Edomites, right? Deuteronomy 30 verse 7, and they're going on drugs, and their women are leaving them, for Jacob. Okay, for so-called Black, Hispanic, and Native Indian man, and Israelite foreigners too, that look ethnic. We're in the UK, whether they're from India, whether they're from Japan, China, whether they're from Turkey, or whether they're Albanian, whether they're whatever, man. All right. In the day when the keepers of the house shall tremble, and the strong men shall bow themselves, and the grinders cease because they are few, and those that look out of the windows be darkened. No jobs. Okay, they look out their windows. Everything seems bleak. All the shops and stores are shut. You know, people don't really want to have too much of a conversation anymore. People don't have that spirit of walking down the street, with their pockets in their hands and whistling like they're carefree. There's exceptions, of course, but these these curses are coming on these devils, and rightfully so. Verse 4: and the doors shall be shut in the streets when the sounding of the grinding is low, no jobs, and he shall rise up at the voice of the bird, and all the daughters of music shall be brought low. No, the music is trash. No optimism, no romance, no, like, everything's gonna be all right. None of that shit no more. And if people are listening to that kind of music, where uh, listen to a bit of Tony Braxton, let it flow, everything's gonna be all right. That song. You know, I'm just coming up with positive songs that some people probably still listen to try and pep themselves up. All that shit's out. If they are listening to them positive songs, it's from way back in the day. It's not happening now. Okay. So, hey, these curses are coming on these devils, man. All right. Let me just read one more, man. Salakia, Actually, I'm not going to say Salakia for reading a scripture. Haggai 1 and 6, KJV. Haggai 1 and 6. I just realized, man, it's November this week. Brakti, how about Shem Rashai, man? November the 1st is a Saturday. No SNAP benefits. Isn't that the deadline? That's America, right? And Esau likes to do his trials on a Saturday, man. Yeah. Something could go down, man. Saturday, Sunday. All right. Haggai 1 and 6. Ye have sown much and bring in little. Ye eat, but ye have not enough. Ye drink, but ye are not filled with drink. Ye clothe you, but there is none warm. And he that earneth wages to put it into a bag with holes. Have we seen videos online? Those of you that are in the spirit, and are watching our apostles and elders as they give game on which kinds of videos to watch, whether it's watching videos on herbs, so you can find out which plants and all that kind of thing. These things are edible. So, Lord forbid you're in a situation where you are homeless, right? Because, you've got to be like pilgrims upon the earth, right? As you're moving around. You can eat and drink. Getting game like that, for example, or learning how to start a fire, without matches or a lighter, you know, or learning how to sort of survive out there in the elements. So we watch videos, and haven't we seen videos of people that actually work, right, but are living in cars, okay, but they can't afford it, okay? A lot of them have got their plans. Oh, I'm going to earn this much money. Once I've got this much saved, I'm going to move to this part of Europe, or I'm going to buy a bigger van and this, down the third. And I'm going to live in the elements and in the jungles or whatever, you know? People are really resorting, and it's really becoming a real a disparity as well. Like in terms of where you got the rich that are blatantly rich, and then you got the poor right next to them. It's kind of you know what that's how India is. India is actually coming up, which they're not going to really get to that level anyway because Elam's already had their rulership, right? But uh, that disparity, because India was once a very rich place before the so-called white man got there. They had 27% of the world's economy. They were doing very well. Esau come there, fucked everything up. So that disparity is there as well, where you got the rich and the poor side by side. The same thing's happening in the UK and America, right? Okay, let's go back to that video, man. Let's hear some of these sob stories, as Edom might say. All right.
Annual report by the National Housing Charity Shelter, at least 3,900 people across the city, including more than 1,800 children, spent Christmas without a home. In Bristol, that means 1 out of every 121
and that's the number's probably way more than that. Way more than that, man. Okay. Because Esau knows what the number is, because they love to count things. That's hence the reason why they like to do a census. And these censuses are done to find out how many Israelites there are in each location. They know about Jacob, and they know about the Israelite foreigners. Hence the reason why when I look at Israelite foreigners, especially where the Jakes come from, where my family, where the Lord put them, where the Lord Yahweh put my family, the Jakes over there are catching hell because East Indian government know those people over there are Jacob. Okay, hence the reason why the Elamite government always attack northern India, because then there's a whole bunch of Jake there, pump drugs into that community, so forth and so on, man. I forgot my train of thought there. Oh. Anyway, let's roll with it. Salakia for that.
residents is homeless. In the United States, particularly in cities like New York and Las Vegas, many homeless individuals live in underground tunnels, earning them the nickname mole people. But in Bristol, the situation is quite different.
1 minute. When did they call the mole people in demolition, man? Let's check that out. In demolition, man, what were the people called that were living underground? Okay. I thought they were called the mole people as well for some reason. They were having the pigeon burgers and all that, weren't they? Or rat burgers.
Instead of sleeping in vans or caravans, a group of homeless individuals has taken refuge deep underground, in the caves scattered around the city.
Caves. And doesn't that look like we call it a place like Cardboard City? Where's Cardboard City? Is that in the UK or America? Where is Cardboard City? Okay, yeah, Cardboard City is a place in London, near underpasses between Waterloo Station and the South Bank in London, England. Okay, which means it's basically an area of makeshift shelters, right? Tents, with cardboard sort of makeshift shelters added to it as well. So you could have a cardboard with a dog in it, cardboard box with a dog in it, and the tent could be for the so-called human being. All right, and that was between the 1980s and 1990s, ending in 1998, which is weird because it started again. All right, there's cardboard cities all over England now, not just in the South Bank in London near Waterloo. Okay, well, look at Los Angeles. The city of angels, right? Tents everywhere. Tents everywhere. Junkies everywhere. These Polish Edomite so-called white people everywhere. Outside bookies, betting shops, drunk as a MFer. All right, so these curses are coming on these devils, man.
Surprisingly, it's not just ordinary citizens who have lost their homes. Even a former soldier has been living in one of these caves for years, pushed to such extremes by the soaring cost.
And Keir Starmer, right, wants to trial the digital ID on who? Veteran soldiers first, okay? Because a lot of people are bucking up against it. But he was saying, let's trial it on the veterans first, okay? And here we have a veteran soldier that's homeless. Do you think he'll be a candidate for the Karagma? Okay, a lot of people, while they're so-called comfortable, have a little bit of so-called hope, might have a job, a few quid in their bank account or in their back pocket. They might say, you know what, F them. But when push comes to shove, a lot of these people will buck. Will bend and will take the CHIP when that's introduced, because you're already pushing that digital ID hard, man. Remember, rich and poor, free and bond. It's for everyone. And these MFers are, these people living in caves are obviously poor, right? So that charagma is for everyone. And the poor and the needy are going to be the first in people in line to take the digital, to get with the digital ID program, as well as take the CHIP when that is introduced. All right. Because people can go without a shower for a couple of weeks, which is disgusting. People can wear the same clothes for a couple of weeks, which is disgusting, and all that same footwear, which is just, which is disgusting. But when it comes to water and food, water being more important, of course, okay, all right, people will bend when it comes to that, okay, because starvation is a very, very, very cruel way to, go. But the Lord will do that to a lot of people, especially the so-called white man and the heathen nations. And this is just a start. Full hell hasn't even broken loose yet, right? And when's this video from? 6 months ago. So how much more now? And how much more is it going to increase? So Deuteronomy 30 verse 7 is coming thick and fast on these devils, and it's going to be in full effect once Yahushua returns and the kingdom is established on this planet Earth and beyond.
Of housing and rent in the city, reaching these caves to such extreme homes. Even a former soldier has been living in one of these caves for years, pushed to such extremes by the soaring cost of housing and rent in the city. Reaching these caves is no easy feat. The journey itself is a challenge, requiring navigation through narrow pathways and steep cliffs that make access difficult.
And that's very similar to the Caucasus Mountains. Steep cliffs, narrow passages. Let's Google the Caucasus Mountains. Esau, the so-called white man, is going back to his nature. The Caucasus Mountains. Blatant here. I want to see the imagery with the little holes in it. This is it. This is good. This is good. This is a good one. Here we go. This is excellent. Now, Caucasus Mountains, Georgia holidays. Okay, you see the little steps there. Obviously, back in the ancient, back then when we pushed these devils there, when their first home was Mount Seir. Okay, now we pushed them there. Now, what does this look like? A rough draft of like an apartment building, right? Really tall. Because in the scriptures, I believe you're not supposed to make a building no more than 3 stories high. But these devils like to build these, obviously the mountain is there. They didn't build that, but they like really high locations, That's why these devils like to jump out planes and all that, Look at that. See the narrow pathways, the holes, the little apartments that they have. These people, if you watch the movie Quest for Fire, these people were, wearing their loincloths until it disintegrated. They didn't wash. They stank. They had lice. They were picking lice out of their genitalia. The chest. The men and the women, too, plucking the lice out of their chest hair. Because those bitches, Edomite bitches, are hairy. They're less hairy than they used to be, but they're still hairy, man. Because in the ancient world, these motherfuckers were hairy, man. That's why they're like monkeys, thin lips, pale. Because monkeys are pale underneath all that hair. See that narrow pathways and shit, right? And Esau, look at that, and look at that. This is in England, by the way, right? And Esau's already going back to his old ways, They're going back to where they find a source of comfort, where they feel like they're at home. They're going back to their roots, where Jake is waking up on the right hand side, and in their mindset, going back to their roots of being an Israelite. These devils are going back to their brute beast ways.
It's far from an ideal place to live. But for those who have no other options, the caves become their last chance at having a home. These individuals don't just use the caves as makeshift shelters, they transform them into functional living spaces. Inside, you'll find double beds, cooking equipment, and blankets to protect against the freezing cold. Their ingenuity is remarkable. They've even managed to channel water into.
Okay, learning to channel water, having a sink and all that kind of stuff in there. They learned that from Jacob. Okay, these crackers did not have all this ingenuity in the caves. All right, they got that from Jake because we invented everything. So they used a couple of our little inventions, which they did a terrible job of, and trying to reuse that to Jake ideas within these caves. You know, but they're still resorting back to their old ways. And I'm surprised they got cooking utensils because these people like to eat everything raw, don't they? You know. Oh, the flavor is so nice in this beef. Ooh, I like it raw. You know, and they like to have. I like to. They'd always like to have a little dog in them. You know, I feel sorry for the dog because the dogs and the cats get molested by these damn devils, man. They was kissing the dogs in the mouth and shit. They're foul people, man. You know, in the book of Job, man, I believe it's 30 and 8. And even Job said in the spirit and power of Yahweh Shemashai, man, I will never let these. He's paraphrasing the scripture, of course. I will not let these people, even lie with the flocks of my dogs, something along those lines. Paraphrasing, of course. You know, dirty people, man. Who do you see having a dog at the dinner table? Who do you see kissing their dog in the mouth? You know, who do you see? You know, it's them, the usual suspects, as Edomites, so-called white man.
To the caves, using a simple filtration system made from wool hats to create a working sink. To keep the cave clean, they wrap chicken wire around the entrance gate to prevent leaves from blowing into their water supply. Deeper inside, there are remnants of past inhabitants, a small wooden hut with a stone fireplace, evidence that people have lived here long before. Comfort, of course, is relative, but for these individuals, anything is better than sleeping on the streets. Ironically, even though some banks offer special accounts for the homeless, they still require proof of address to open one. Without a permanent address or a bank account, accessing social benefits becomes nearly impossible. This is why many of them go to great lengths to secure some form of shelter, even if it means living in caves. Unfortunately, their choice of residence makes them stand out even more. While those living on the streets or in shelters might still be seen as part of society, cave dwellers are often perceived as outcasts, wilder, more dangerous, or even frightening to the public.
Outcasts, cave dwellers. That's the Caucasian man. Wild. Who's a wild man? Huh? Who's a wild man? Let's see. They were called the woodlouse or woodwouse. Who was a wild man in the ancient world? The woodwouse? Wood something along. I think it was. Oh yeah, the woodwose. The woodwose. Here we go. It came as wood Walsh. The term wild man. The term wild man can refer to the woodwose, also spelled as woodwose, a mythical creature from the medieval Europe. Okay, the damn Sasquatch is probably Esau, all hairy and shit. That's them, the wild man. They're going back to the ancient ways. They're going back to the ancient ways. The wild, they people don't want to know about them. The outcasts. Yeah, that's the so-called white man. Look at some images of these damn devils, man. Because the elders have some excellent images of Jake, whooping their ass. These damn devils. Look. What's this? Red, hairy, beast, so-called white man. Yeah, caveman. Right? Edomites, caveman. All right, with a club in their hand, Captain Caveman and shit. That's these devils. Right? See? Doesn't that look like that? The Liver King? Look at that. That's a Liver King there. The modern day woodwouse, the Liver King. Looks like that damn devil, doesn't it? Let's go.
Clearly, this kind of life, wilder, more as part of society, cave dwellers are often perceived as outcasts, wilder, more dangerous, or even frightening to the public.
That's what they did in the ancient world. They came and stole, murdered. They were filthy. They were wild. The wild man. That's Esau, so-called white man. They're going back to their roots.
Clearly, this kind of life isn't for everyone. The cave itself isn't the only challenge. The Bitter cold makes survival
I want to see how many so-called black or brown people are living in these caves. Let's see if they show anything like that. I'll give it another couple of minutes. I'm not going to watch all of this, of course. We've got the idea, of course.
even tougher. And despite offering some protection, the caves aren't always safe. They sometimes become gathering spots for heavy drinkers and drug users, meaning the residents have to clean up regularly just to keep their living space habitable. But what's even more frustrating is that authorities frequently evict them under the pretense of wildlife protection. Officials install fences, claiming that humans
You need wildlife protection because these devils are probably trying to grape the wildlife or try and do something foul and eat something foul. That's their nature anyway. Do they leave any kind of animal or beast alone? Huh? They either grape them or murder them or enslave them or imprison them in cages like zoos, or they try and eat them. You know.
human presence disturbs the bats that naturally inhabit the caves. However, to the homeless individuals who live there, this reasoning feels like an excuse. In reality, once the caves are sealed off, they're no longer accessible to humans or bats. The irony is hard to ignore. These fences don't just drive away those in desperate need of shelter, but they also end up blocking the very creatures they were supposedly meant to protect, preventing the bats from leaving to find food. Fear shortage of truly secure social housing have all contributed to the skyrocketing number of homeless individuals in the city. Bristol currently has the highest rate of homelessness in the Southwest. Between October and December 2024, 234 households were forced to leave their rental properties after being evicted by their landlords. Alarmingly, this figure marks a new record, double the number recorded during the same period in 2019. As a result, families that become homeless are typically placed in
There you go, a wood wouse. A wood wouse. The wild man. All right. So when Jake has a beard, Jake looks real majestic, comely. You know what I mean? Looks natural. When you see a cracker with a beard, this motherfucker ain't gonna wash his beard or even comb it. And even if they do have access to, if they don't, even if they do have access to water, they still don't shower or wash themselves. They stink. All right, they stink. You know, that's why they always do the easy thing, just shave everything off, right, and throw cologne on, and they don't shower. Jake will put cologne and nice scents on, but obviously Jake will shower, man. Sometimes multiple times a day. That's in our spirit to be clean. These crackers are filthy, man. This motherfucker already got all kinds of bugs in his hair and shit, in his jacket, coat.
temporary accommodations provided by the local council. Government data reveals that nearly 45% of these families have been stuck in temporary housing for over 2 years. The chronic shortage of social housing has left more than 1.3
All right, our people look like everyone, but you can tell these MFers are Edomites, man, through the spirit, right? Okay, and who do you mainly see? You only see what? The descendants of the Woodwose people, aka the Edomites, aka the Woodwose, aka Caucasian, aka so-called white man. They're people.
million households on the waiting list across England. Now, more than 6,000 homeless individuals in Bristol seek government assistance each year, a 25% increase since the pandemic. Meanwhile, the cost of temporary accommodation across the UK continues to soar.
What was that?
Meanwhile, the cost of temporary
Okay, yeah, there's a Jake there, but he looks like he's helping them. He's probably like one of them so-called kind of support worker type people.
accommodation across the UK continues to soar,
Well, he looked like
with
a Jake.
annual spending
Could have been a Hamite, but more than likely Jake anyway.
reaching a staggering £2.29 billion sterling. As of January 2024, the average property price in Bristol had climbed to £335,900 sterling, significantly higher than the UK-wide average of £288,000 sterling. Among the homeless population, vulnerable groups, especially women, face even greater risks. Violence lurks around every corner, taking many forms: physical, verbal, and even sexual abuse. Many homeless women are forced into situations that harm them, not because they want to, but because
It leads to diseases, prostitution. Um, Same thing, isn't it? People. If you've seen people on heroin and crack, especially heroin only makes them normal after a while. It only makes them function. Otherwise, they get the runs, they get the shits, they're shivering, they're cold. It could be like a really boiling hot day. They'll be cold, wearing a fucking woolly hat, shivering, stinking, because they don't even want to take care of themselves or look after themselves or whatever. You know, their goal every single day is to chase the dragon, is to get that fix and to feel normal And then once they feel normal, they steal and everything, and then they try and get more of it so they can feel normal the next day, so they don't get sick. That's why. And then a lot of these women, right, go into prostitution, and you've got a lot of weirdos out there that deal with them. But anyway, let's go.
Because they have no choice. Their very survival depends on it. Imagine a homeless woman caught in a heavy downpour, desperately searching for a safe place to sleep. But the harsh reality is that
Independent woman, right? You know, you know, I'm woman, hear me roar and all that. Didn't you say all that? Right?
no place is truly safe. That's why many end up staying with strangers, sometimes in dangerous, even abusive situations, just to have a roof over their heads for the night. This past February, chaos erupted within Bristol's van-dwelling community when a caravan was destroyed in a suspected arson attack on Savile Road. This incident came amid a dramatic rise in the number of people living in vehicles across the city, a staggering 400% increase over the past 5 years, bringing the total to 680 individuals. Homelessness isn't just about surviving life on the streets. It's a stark reflection of the growing gap between wealth and poverty. On one end, some live in absolute luxury, while on the other, people struggle just to afford a single meal. The stigma and discrimination surrounding homelessness continue to worsen, making access to social services even more difficult. The consequences are severe. Mental and physical health deteriorate. Petty crimes increase as people steal just to eat, and social tensions rise, creating an ever-widening divide within the community. Beyond the humanitarian crisis, homelessness also places a massive financial strain on the economy. Governments are forced to allocate enormous funds for social assistance, shelters, and healthcare services. At the same time, areas with high homeless populations often experience declining property values and reduced tourism appeal, impacting local businesses and the city's overall economic health.
I'm gonna leave it there. That's why you got a lot of Edomites moving to different parts of the world. They're moving to different parts, more sunnier, south of France, Spain. Those that have decent positions and that can afford to live and do remote work, because the difference between the UK and living in Europe or Spain, which is a complete contrast. You're living in a tropical environment compared to the UK. The bottomless pit, right, where nothing grows. Um, it's an hour difference in time. So if you got like a 9 to 5, right? You basically, what is it, hour before? Yeah. So if you live in Spain and you're doing a 9 to 5 UK time, you got to basically work from 8 to 4 in Spain. So basically, which is and you're calling clients or dealing with clients in the UK, is you're basically doing an earlier shift. You're 8 to 4. You start early in the morning and finish early, 4 o'clock in the afternoon. You know, which is a cushy number, as they say in the UK. Which is, you know, so a lot of people are moving, but then again, a lot of these Edomites that are moving abroad to countries where the people do look different, especially people of color, you Edomites are going to get got. And even if you are moving to Europe, where the so-called, Polish might not like you, which are your brothers anyway, or other so-called white people might not like you, which are your brothers, they're going to get you. And then you've got the people that are indigenous to the land, the brown people, they're going to get you when all hell breaks loose. The way they're fucking you up in Mexico, they're going to get you in India too, because there's a whole bunch of Edomites still there since the days of the Raj, still living there. That old money has been, coming into the UK. A lot of you Edomites have done good, from your theft and murder and enslavement from around the world. You're going to get got, because now is a time of recompense, man. And it's going to be even more greater as time goes along. And in the kingdom, you are FUCKED with 3 exclamation marks, all in red, in bold, okay, in the kingdom. You ain't going to have no damn mercy, all right? But right now, you're getting a little taste. And Barakti Yahweh Bashim Yashai Bashim Kakodash for that. Let's go to Galatians 6, verse 7, man. Galatians 6, verse 7, KJV. Galatians 6, verse 7. Be not deceived. The Most High Yahweh Bahashem Yahshai is not mocked. For whatsoever a man soweth, that shall he also reap. We sowed, we disobeyed the Most High, and Jake, I'm saying it lightly, and the Lord punished us using Esau, the so-called white man, and prior to the so-called white man, other nations as a whooping stick in each of the heathen rulerships that we were captives in. And this is our final one, all right? And the Lord, we suffered, you know, and we sowed, wrong, and we got punished, right? And Esau, the so-called white man, he did what he did to us, okay? Even though the Lord is using him as a whooping stick, but he went overboard, overboard, okay? The so-called white man went overboard, all right? Graping men, graping wives, children, you know, um, using Israelite men, so-called black, Hispanic, and Native Indian skin, especially the so-called black man's skin, for leather, for clothes and wallets and shoes, you know, burning them while they're alive. Then once they're burnt up and alive, or before they burn them alive, cutting their dicks off or rods off, and then burning them alive, you know, having the man tied up, watching his wife get a train ran on her, having him tied up, watching his sister or his mother being raped in front of him, seeing his mother's nakedness, having him tied up, watching his son get raped, penetrated by men, faggots. This is the kind of shit that his damn devil been doing, and went overboard, all right? And obviously they don't have a righteous bone in their body, so they went overboard. So you're going to pay for what you did, devil, all right? But we're going to punish you in a righteous way. We're not going to do no weird faggot shit like you MFers do. But we are going to clip your toes off with a plier, for example, We're going to clip your nose tip off, with some burning hot tongs, We're going to think of all sorts of ways, We might use spiritual, we do it old school, or we can use spiritual power. We just like laser beam, shoot laser beams from our hands or eyes and just blow, cut your toes off, We're going to do all sorts of ways, man. All right, you're going to punish, the Lord's going to punish you. And you're getting the little tip of the iceberg. And in the kingdom, you are effed, all right? Okay, because the Lord requires that which is past. You can't say bygones are bygones. The Lord requires that which is past. Okay, Yahweh Shem is not a man that he should lie. All right, hence the reason why you get babies being born in wheelchairs and being in a wheelchair all their life, or they don't have no limbs or whatever. All right, why? What do you think they did in their past life? You suffer, man. You reap what you sow. You might not get it in that specific lifetime, but you'll get it in the next. And then you'll wonder why. Why was I born with 3 heads? Why was I born with you know, with no legs, a lot of you Edomites are suffering that right now. A lot of you, Jake too, but but I'm saying Esau and heathens too. And how much more in the kingdom, man? So you reap what you sow, and the Lord Yahweh Shemashah requires that which is past. And this is just the tip of the iceberg that you're suffering right now, being homeless. And Barak Yahweh Shemashah for this, man. You devils are suffering, all right? And you 2/3 Jakes, in America are going to suffer too. All right, and you unelect Jakes over here are going to suffer. Only the elect are going to be covered with Yahweh Shemashah's wings, okay? All right, so this is a good sign that we see this world falling. So-called white man's world is falling. All right, all praises to Yahweh Shemashah, Bahashem Rakakadash, Mawatha Bad Babal, Kwame Shalom.